It's not always about games, and it's not always good. Full frontal garbage.
Full breath. Hi, welcome. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining us. Full frontal garbage. Here we go.
All right. That was an intro and a half, David. I enjoyed it. It's very spontaneous.
Yes.
Very, very avant-garde.
I'm not one for scripts.
Yeah, we literally just had that conversation.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's been a hell of a week.
Has it? Has it?
Yeah. I mean, work's been crazy, you know, the world's been up and down, stocks have been up and down, I've had stuff invested. The biggest fucking thing that's happened this week is probably the biggest electronic band in the world. You know, a little duo called Daft Punk freaking retired.
Yeah, that blows
I'm sure you've heard about that.
Yeah, it blows my mind. It doesn't feel real, to be honest. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, that's
they're
what you
just
get when you go like 8 years in between making albums, though.
I mean, eventually it runs its course, and you've explored every avenue of, you know, what you've set out to do, and you eventually have to just part ways with it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, you have to do the same thing until you die. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, you know, it's melancholic. It's bittersweet. You know, because we both have very, very good memories of two people specifically. It's Daft Punk and Deadmau5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was your very first Daft Punk memory that you can think of?
Oh man, my very first memory was coming to the realization that Kanye West song was sampling Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, and then like you from that kind of showing me and Jesse like the discography of Daft Punk, and me really getting into it from there.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like, no, guys, this isn't the original. Here's the original.
Yeah.
And you two sitting there at the little laptop computer when we were in high school, like, oh my God.
This is amazing. One of my favorites is there's this mashup. It was Steam Machine, Around the World, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, and I think there was another one. But it was this live performance that was a mashup of all of those songs. And it's just, oh, dude, it was so incredible.
Was it from Daft Punk? Was it from their live 2007 set?
I don't know if it was the 2007 set or not. I can't really remember. I'll have to find the video. It was like, it was just the audio. Like I have found video of it, but I would much rather, like, I have this thing, like, when I find something, like the origin video is kind of like what I consider to be like the main experience for me. So like if I go up and find the same thing, but it's the video of it, because the original video, it was just black with red text, and that's just all it was. And so like that was kind of like the way I enjoyed that experience.
It's the thing you latch on to.
Yeah. So when I found the actual video later, and it was just like, nah, I don't want that.
I remember my first one. God, was I even in high school yet? I think I was in junior high. It was even before. I know it was before I met you. I was literally sitting there, you know, back when I want to say it was on MTV. They weren't even actually playing music videos anymore already by this point, but they were doing some kind of expose or some kind of in-depth video article kind of thing. And I saw these blue aliens in like that 80s anime style, and it was such a weird thing. I saw the scene, I think it was for the music video, one more time.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately latched onto that. I don't know why it caught me so hard. There's very few things in my life that have actually clamped onto my mind as hard as that has.
Yeah.
And like, I actually struggle to think about anything right now that's actually come up like that.
You know what? I actually have to take that back. My first experience with Daft Punk is that song. There's a memory that's burnt in my. It's kind of like that hazy thing of like it's almost not real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a memory of me being in the car with my family, little kid. The song has like just recently come out because it's on the radio, playing on the radio in the car, and like the One More Time song.
Yeah.
I think. Let me fact check myself here, because it might have just been a popular fucking song.
Well, at any rate, I saw that.
Yeah,
and I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at some point, I started getting into electronic music beyond that. I had kept it in the back of my mind, and I saw their I can't think of the song name now, and that is terrible for me. Da Punk, I think. Defunk, yeah.
That one's a good one.
And with the dog walking through there, and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool band. And I looked up Daft Punk. And of course, through that I found the song One More Time. I'm like, oh my God, they did that video.
Yeah.
And then it exploded for me because, like, oh my God, Interstellar 5555 or Interstellar 5555.
Yeah.
They made an entire movie off of that album.
Yep.
And from that point on, I was like, dude, Daft Punk is the jam.
That's actually what's really interesting to me is their whole kind of like cinematic side. Like the movies that they have multiple movies that they've either been a part of or
they've got the Interstellar, they've got Human After All, they've got what's the one that they did that they used in their epilogue announcement?
I can't remember that one, but yeah.
They've got several. They've not only got their whole discography of music, but they have this whole discography of like video works and like full length, basically movies that they've put out. And to do all of this, I think, with being able to completely separate their ego from the music.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you think about Daft Punk, you don't think about like the stuff like Kanye West or Eminem or Gene Simmons or anybody else like
that's one
popular goes through. Well, it's like, the people who got famous for things other than their music, right?
Mm-hmm.
Name something Daft Punk is famous for that's not involved with their art.
Oh, yeah.
No, I rest my case.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. They have completely removed the personhood and the ego, and they take off the helmets, which again is part of their art. They take off the helmets, they can walk out into public. Nobody knows who they are. They have achieved, and I think this is why they've lasted so long and had so little controversies. They've really achieved this separation of themselves from their artistic creativity.
Yeah.
That allows them to fully explore their art without it being biased by some soundbite or news article on, why their girlfriend's ass is so fat, know?
Yeah, and I was fixing to say is it's actually it's a perfect physical representation of the whole concept of separate, like you said, the separation of the person and their art. It's like you have that whole controversy of like you have this guy who releases all this music and it's incredible and people love it and he's so popular, and then you find out later that he's done horrific shit or whatever's gone on, and
he raped 17 puppies.
And it's like, I mean, yeah, but that song's still a banger. You know what I mean? And it's a thing of like,
it's like,
I wouldn't support them really, depending on how bad what they did, but like that doesn't reflect what the art is. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It's the whole conversation of removing the art from the artist.
Yeah. And
with
like,
Daft Punk, you don't really have to do that because that's all they are is the art.
literally. Yeah, exactly. Because who they are as people has nothing really to do with what they do.
Because you don't know them outside of their music.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, music and anything artistic is expression and expression of oneself anyway. So I mean, like, there is a form of connection there, but
yeah,
they've gone the extra mile to literally separate themselves from that in a way that you can just truly experience that by itself, like in a bubble.
Exactly. It's really something I think a lot of like true, pure, like, I don't want to say true because that's the no true Scotsman fallacy, but like genuine, heartfelt artists really try and put their art out there to be absorbed as their art and not to be involved with it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to put your art out there because, hey, I want people to look at me, you're not putting your art out there for your art.
Yeah.
You're putting your art out there for your ego.
Yeah. Well, you're putting your ego on display pretty much is what
right.
it is.
Right. But, you know, a lot of times people put their art out there and then they get famous and then their ego gets scrutinized. And honestly, in a lot of aspects, that's unfair. But with Daft Punk, they really managed to keep that separate. And they managed to keep it separate for, God, how many decades were they in? They started in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they donned their helmets in the early 90s. And that's really when they got started getting popular.
Mm-hmm.
The only other artist I can really think of that's really tried to emulate that recently has been Marshmello. And even with that, he's still gotten his fair share of like little bits of controversy here and there.
Yeah.
You know,
Damn, son.
Oh, sorry, I was cleaning off my keyboard.
That was perfect.
I'm sorry. But yeah. And like, I've thought about that too. The whole idea of keeping your identity hidden. The only problem is it's almost impossible. That's one thing. This is the most impressive thing about what Daft Punk has done, is because they've honestly made it to a point to where it's just accepted. You know, the mystery isn't in who they are. The point is, you're not looking at. I wish I could remember their names, but you're not looking at
Thomas Batlinger and Guy Manuel de Haman Cristo.
So Tom and Guy.
Yeah.
You're not looking at Tom and Guy, you're looking at the two robots. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's the purpose of it. That's the essence of it. Is it's not a matter of like this mysticism of who are they, and you're like literally, because I mean everyone knows their names.
And it's not like Slipknot was like in the early days of like they wanted to keep their faces a mystery.
Yeah.
You know, Guy and Thomas, they never really like cared to keep their face a secret. Like you could go look up their early shows that they did, and see their faces, but that wasn't the point.
Yeah.
They didn't care if you knew their face. What they wanted you to focus on was the helmet, the art, the band, the duo, the music,
the persona and the character. And
precisely.
Yeah, and that's what they've honestly done, is they made it to that point to where everyone just kind of got it, you know? There isn't a bunch of like TMZ articles about this and that. Like no one gives a shit. It's like, just give us the music. You know what I mean?
Who's the silver robot going with this time? You know, there's none of that.
None of that whatsoever.
You know, you could have a paparazzi follow these guys around and they take off their helmet and good luck finding them in a crowd.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to be some random guy with jeans and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's really this kind of mindset. And I touched on this before the podcast. Like, they put on the leather outfits, they put on the helmets and the gloves, they become Daft Punk, they become this artistic ideal that they have worked to curate.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing.
It is. And like I was about to say, I thought about that a lot too, because when the problem is, especially when you're like introverted, when you want to entertain, there's a portion of it that is going to feel selfish and egotistical because you're putting yourself out there, and you want to just get lost in the character. You want to get lost in the performance, and that just be it. And that's what you want people to focus on. But very rarely is that ever the case, which is why it's so impressive what Daft Punk was actually managed to accomplish. But I had thought about that for a while, of like trying to like hide, which I mean nobody would give a shit right now anyway, but like hide my identity and just be, you know, faceless and let my content do the talking. But honestly, it would just be too much work. It would
I don't think people realize how much effort it takes to keep your personal separate from your professional in any kind of artistic career, be it music, movies, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of my biggest things. Like, we're doing YouTube, we're doing all this kind of music stuff and so on and so forth right now, and I've kind of pushed past it. I don't know about you, I'm sure you have too. But there's always a part in my mind of like, if someone looks at my content, what are they going to see of me? What are they going to think of me?
Yeah.
That's why, you know, at least in my videos, and that's why I keep these podcasts kind of separate from my channel too, is like, I want to be seen for my content. I don't really want to be seen for this persona. I don't want to have a persona. I want to just be me and put things out there that hopefully people will enjoy. That's ultimately what I want to do, is just find commonality with those who enjoy the same random crap that I do.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is it can be a very like solid connection between viewer and creator when it is that raw and that real. But also it's very difficult to maintain that and to get the ball rolling even, you know. I think
there's like, it's very hard. Like, Daft Punk did it by maintaining pure anonymity. Somebody like inconsistency, exactly. Somebody like Markiplier does it by being just a genuinely good guy. You know, he's not got any massive skeletons in the closet, you know.
Yeah, that we know
of. Yeah, that we know of.
He might have fripped.
This week on YouTube Investigates.
YouTube Investigates. It's a new series we're going to be starting, yes. YouTube Investigates.
This week on YouTube Investigates, we break into Markiplier's house and duct tape him to a chair until he confesses.
We prove
what?
He eats
I don't
babies.
know. That's why we're making him confess. But no, it's like, that's really the only two ways to really do it. You either completely separate your personal from your professional, or you just be entirely comfortable in the people that, or the person that you are.
Yeah, but that could be kind of dangerous, because
if it turns out you have a very problematic view on something.
Well, no, not that. I mean, yes, that as well. That's a whole extra minefield. What I'm talking about is because whatever you're putting out there is a product. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, it's a product. It's being packaged. It's being sold. People are consuming it. It's a product. So when that product is you have got to understand and accept that you're literally selling your personal life.
Okay,
to
that
people.
Makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
So when people feel like they're connecting to you, there is no guard, there's no buffer. They see you in public, they want you. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, when they see you in public, and this is where this kind of like flows into like being genuine too, as just an artist, is like, you have to be in it for the art, because it's where the saying, I think, comes from, don't ever meet your heroes.
Yeah.
It's because a lot of the people, they get this idea in their head of like how they're going to be, how they're going to act, how they're going to, they built up this entire personality that just isn't there.
Exactly.
Of their person that they watch.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's where people like Daft Punk and Markiplier and people like that actually exist, you know, being anonymous or not, because they're genuinely good people. Like, if you've ever watched like the few interviews that Daft Punk has actually done, they're generally quiet, reserved, very technically and musically minded people.
Yeah.
And I think that's very commendable, because that's rare. It's very rare. Because a lot of like modern entertainment, not to kind of get off onto this, not a lot of modern entertainment is solely focused on just the content anymore. You're not going to watch a movie star just for their movies anymore. You're going to watch their movies because you like the movies, but then you're going to read all the tabloid, and this is generally speaking. I'm not one that partakes in gossip culture, but you're going to sit there. Most people are going to consume the movie, consume the tabloids. They're going to read the online, you know, clickbaity articles and stuff like that. And they're just going to get consumed with these people and these ideas, and it just completely removes the point. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why I latched on to Daft Punk as early as I did, because, you know, a lot of these rock stars, it's like, oh, they make really cool music. Oh yeah, they fucked 3 hookers in a hotel room and OD'd on crystal meth and then got transported to the hospital. That's going to taint your image of their music, no matter how good their music is.
Well,
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bore you.
I've never had a problem with that personally. This actually has got me into trouble a couple times with some people.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, I don't pay attention to it. You don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But like,
I don't know.
Continue like what you're saying, because I think you're about to go the same spot I am.
Well, I mean, it's just building on what you've already said of just I just don't have a problem with separating that kind of stuff. You know, it's just like my sense of humor. I will say anything behind closed doors. Not that, you know,
not that you really think it, but
yeah, not that I really think it, or that it's like, oh, because I can get away with it, ha ha ha. It means nothing to me, you know, just joking and having like, depending on the person I'm speaking to, everything's on the table, because to me, I mean, this is going off on a completely different direction. There's no point going down that point. My point is that you hear a song and you're like, hey, I like that song. And then you hear about this thing and you're like, oh my God, that's terrible. I mean, you can still listen to the song. It's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, you can still listen to the song, enjoy the song. It's separating the art from the artists. But, you know, me working in retail, back when I worked the day shift, God, that's so terrible to say, just for my own mental clarity. But back when I worked the day shift, you know, you're going to talk about remedial crap. You're not going to sit there and talk about your personal life, because you don't care about your personal life. So you're going to talk about music and movies and stuff like that. And inevitably somebody's going to be listening to something, and you'll be like, oh, that's a catchy song. I'm going to look that up. You go home, you look up that catchy song you heard, you know, on the radio at work or something like that. And it's insert controversial artist here. You know?
Yeah.
It's like most people are going to go home and they're going to have that, and they're going to be like, man, did it have to be so-and-so? That was a good song. And even though you still think it's a good song, you're still going to have that image in the back of your head of like, it's that douchebag, really? And it's very commendable when people can completely separate themselves like that. Yeah. It took me a while to get there. Like, you're ahead of my curve on that one. Like, I would used to be really bad about falling into, oh, it's a really cool song. Look it up. Oh, it's a religious band. Ugh. I'm over it now, but like, you know, once upon a time, I was a bigger dick than I am now.
Yeah. You ever thought about how weird it is that when you're wearing headphones, like you're hearing the person's voice inside of your head?
You know what? I've never really thought about it that way.
Like honestly, like because I'm just sitting here and I was just kind of listening to you talk, and I was like compressing the headset on my head just to kind of, I don't know, it affects the sound a little bit, makes it a bit richer, I guess, because it, you know, it kind of seals it
makes
better.
Makes a better seal, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like thinking, I was thinking to myself, and
this sound only exists in your ears.
Yeah, it exists in my head, and then your voice exists in my head, and it's like, that's kind of crazy. You know what I mean? It's just technology's fucking weird, dude. In all honesty, it's remarkable. It's remarkable the things that we take for granted every single day.
Honestly,
it's just it really does blow my mind. And I mean, it's like, you got to get past it eventually and just enjoy the thing and then just move on. Otherwise, you're going to be crippled for the rest of your life, and you're never going to be able to experience anything truly, because you're just going to be sitting there going, oh my God, I hit the switch and the light comes on, and what is light even? And you're just going to be gone. But it's cool to just every now and then just stop and take a moment and just think about the fact that you're
peasant. What? Your peasant ancestors from the 1700s are incredibly proud of you right now. It doesn't matter what you're doing in the world. You exist in this time period. It's like, you're listening to this podcast, you have headphones, you have a phone, you have a computer, you have something you're listening on. The only thing your ancestors are thinking is like, wow, this amazing person is so successful. They have this magic box with lights and produces these noises, and this is confoundingly amazing to me.
Yeah. And I mean, so much of life today is built on expectation, because, you know, humanity as a species is constantly moving forward, and you as a person are a part of that species. You're a part of that momentum. And so a lot of times it's really easy to get caught up in like the expectation of what you're supposed to be, you know? I mean, hell, how many children in schools were asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know what I mean? And what you realize, sadly, at the end of your time in school, unless you have like helicopter parents who are curating your entire experience in school, or you're just a really smart kid who thinks forward, you realize at the end of your experience in high school, it's like, oh, this is meant to prepare me for something. I'm supposed to have an idea of where I want to go and what I want to be, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like,
that didn't happen.
It's it's really difficult to remember that sometimes you just need to separate yourself from the bigger picture and realize you're still just one component. You know what I mean? You're just a piece. And
you just got to be a leaf on the river.
Yeah, you got to be a leaf on the wind, I would say. But you just got to go with the flow and realize that you are just one person, and you're not going to accomplish the world in a day.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You got to take it one day at a time, one step at a time. And
you know, I think a lot of people miss, simply existing is good enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you don't have to change the world.
Yeah,
is what I mean.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. Yes. In a nutshell, yes. I see what you're saying there. And
like, it's simply being your own person and being happy with your life is enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
As long as you're not a raging dickhead and actively harming other people.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's like, I've had
just
that.
Exist and be happy.
Yeah. And it's like my philosophy. Ultimately, if what you're doing isn't a harm to you or others, why is there a problem? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I mean,
exactly.
And that's my personal belief. That's my personal philosophy. That's how I live my life, and that's how I see others. Because it's so easy to get caught up in the black and white ideal of, this is the way to do things. You do it this way, you're right. If you don't do it, you're wrong. You know?
Yeah, like, I think it's, especially in America too, is like there's a big catch up between doing things quote unquote the right way.
Yeah. And
it's like there's no right or wrong way, you know, as long as you're not breaking laws or killing people and blah blah blah, you know. As long as you're just doing things that make you happy and you're existing within your means and you know, you're comfortable being yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
But you know what is a really fucking good thing? The Nintendo Switch.
Brought to you by the Nintendo Switch.
Oh god, if we were sponsored by Nintendo, I would not be sitting in the house I'm sitting in.
Oh my god. Dude. Okay, so let me tell you a little story. So I got the Wii U years back when it came out, and I was just walking around. One second. Yeah. But I was walking around. I grabbed the, you know, and then the way the Wii U worked was you had the console. It was just like the Wii, really. And
didn't it have like the separatable screen?
Well, that's actually, yeah, what it came with this big ass gamepad that was bigger than the console itself, and it had the screen in the center of it. But the thing was is that you would put the disc in the console, or you would start the game up or whatever, and you could connect it to the TV and just use a Wiimote or whatever controller if that would work with the Wii U. But you could also use the gamepad, and it was completely separate from the TV. So you could change the channel, people could watch TV or whatever, and you could take your gamepad and you could still play the game and have the full experience. And it looked great and everything was cool.
Man. It wasn't some watered down version or port. It was the actual game.
Yeah. And like I could go, the biggest thing for me, as I can't remember exactly what age I was when I got it, but the biggest thing for me was that you could actually go use the freaking bathroom and just be sitting there on the toilet doing your business, playing the game. You know, you weren't playing a Game Boy, you weren't playing some like dinky handheld thing. You were playing the full experience console game, and it blew my freaking mind. And it was
you were playing Doom while you took a Doom. I don't know if Doom was on that console. I was just
it wasn't, but it's the point was there. But it was crazy to me. But I mean, it still had the limitations of the gamepad had to be within a certain distance, and it couldn't be that far from the console itself. And it was, you know, it was bulky. It was kind of crazy, and there was all this stuff, and you still had to have the console. Like you still had to have that whole thing. The freaking
there was
Switch.
Still some block, yeah.
Yeah, the freaking Switch blows my damn mind. And I want to say people aren't talking about it the way they should, or it's somehow underrated because I don't hear a lot about it. It's not. The Switch is super popular. It is especially exploded in this pandemic and everything that's still going on. I mean, it is top of the charts, top of the charts. But I still don't hear the conversation about how absolutely mind-blowing it actually is and what Nintendo's actually done with it, because you can fit,
it's a really phenomenal console.
the freaking tiny little screen, which is still bigger than the screen that was on the Wii U gamepad. Think about that tiny thing can fit in your pocket, and that's the console. That's the whole fucking console. You know?
Yeah, basically the only thing that you do to attach it to a TV is like stick it on a charging port.
There's a docking station, and it's just slightly bigger than it, and you set the damn thing into it, and then there you go. You have full TV console experience. But and the Joy-Cons, which they are small, and they do feel like you're going to just, you know, just crush them in your hands, but they're more durable than you think, number one. And like they're still interesting, and they work perfectly well. Like, it's amazing how well they work without any work or calibration on your part at all. And it's just like there is no limitations. There truly is no limitations. You put the Joy-Cons on the fucking console and it works. You take the Joy-Cons off, set the little screen thing wherever you want, it works. You put it on the TV and you just, use whatever remote you want to use, and it fucking works. And it's just, you can go anywhere with it. Its battery life is actually pretty impressive for the fact that the battery is powering a console. It's remarkable.
If anyone says anything like, the Switch isn't that great, all right, cool. Go take your PlayStation 4 and slap a screen on it and throw it in your pocket. And I dare you.
I mean, and it's not a new concept. People have, like, there was that like portable gaming station for the PlayStation. I think they had one for the PS2, and it was like a little briefcase thing, and it had a little screen that would fold up, and you plugged it all into it.
Yeah, basically you could get away with it just one wall outlet, and you just open the case and you could play.
Yeah.
But that was still, like you said, the size of a freaking briefcase.
Yeah, exactly. It was big and bulky.
Like, here's a good thing. We used to play Warframe constantly on PlayStation 4. We loved Warframe. It got ported over to the Switch. There is no graphical limitations. There was a few bugs, but they've gotten worked out. So the game looks exactly the same on the Switch that it does on the PS4. The difference is the PS4, you have to like pack up into a computer bag, and that's not even counting a screen or anything. The freaking Switch, you can literally throw it in your backpack. That's the entire console's controls and everything. And you can play the same game that you can on the PlayStation 4. Same graphics, same FPS rating. As long as you have an internet connection, you're golden.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. There's a level of like, damn, Nintendo, you've outdone yourself.
Yeah.
It's just because the next closest thing I can think of is the PlayStation Vita. And it didn't have full console support. It was a jerry-rigged like remote play feature.
Yeah.
And that was janky, and 9 times out of 10 it didn't work, and there was like solid 3 or 4 seconds of input lag if you didn't have like NASA's internet connection.
Yeah. And the biggest disconnect between that and what the Switch is the fact that compared to the console experience, it's still third party. If you get a PlayStation, you have to get a PlayStation game. You have to get the Vita version. If you want to use the Vita with the PlayStation, you still have to have the PlayStation. You have to have the Vita. They have to communicate. There's just the simple fact that it's you go right back to the Wii U and the gamepad. It's
the same problem.
It's the exact
like the
same
main
situation.
console is disconnected from your portability.
Exactly. And so all the limitations of a console still exist, even with this handheld device. That's my point. The Switch is a completely isolated, self-contained experience that whether you're at home or on a train or a bus, in your office, at lunch at school, anytime, anywhere, you can pull that thing out and have the full console experience. And I understand that's the full fucking like market, like the marketing campaign for the Switch. I'm not saying anything new. I'm not dropping any bombs on anybody. I'm just taking a moment to just truly process that and appreciate that. It is incredible.
Like, the next best thing I can think of aside from a Switch, and this really doesn't even come that close in terms of I guess usability or user accessibility, is a laptop that's a gaming PC.
Yeah.
Even at that point, like the price point for that kind of laptop is outside of a lot of console gamers' reach.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
like
100%.
To get a decent gaming laptop that will play the same games that you can play like on the Switch, you have to drop a fair coin. And on top of that, if you wanted the same gaming experience like you would get on your PC, you would still have to use a mouse at least, if not also an external keyboard, if you wanted a specific tactile kind of input. Because a lot of those laptop keyboards, no matter if it's a gaming PC or not, they're not going to come with like Cherry 3s. You know, they're not going to come with those switches. Most of them are going, or switch keys. Most of them are still going to be membrane keys because you simply just can't get any bigger on a laptop.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of where I agree that the Switch really comes into its play, because it has fully functional controllers that are the same regardless of whether you're taking it with you or you're playing it on your TV in your living room.
Yeah. No, I mean, there are limitations when it comes to the software. When it comes to games.
Oh, sure, yeah. Like that's mainly consoles in general too.
Yeah, trying to play a shooter, like a competitive shooter, on the Switch in handheld and undocked mode, it's near impossible sometimes, depending on the draw distance and how far away people are from you, because the screen it's just smaller. But that's a physical limitation of, like, it's literally just smaller. That's just how it's gonna be. But the intended console experience is completely untarnished. But then again, I mean, that comes down to, you know, what's better to play a shooter on, controller or keyboard and mouse. Right, it's preference. You know, exactly. But yeah, and I mean, like I was saying, it's not like changing the world and all this stuff. It's just, like I was talking about earlier, it's just stopping and taking a moment to really truly appreciate what it is, and it's really cool.
Exactly. And we're going to take a moment here. David, you're probably going to cut this part out of the video. I'm going to go turn off my alarm.
My baby don't mess around because she knows me, and baby she won't. My baby boss, she busy, big army. Hey ya, do 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 do, hey ya.
And we're back from commercial break.
But yeah, cool stuff. And I've
honestly spent a lot of sleepless nights in front of a console, and while I haven't personally played like the Nintendo Switch specifically, there is something about being able to, like, okay, I'm done, and then just put your console under your pillow. Like, I think we've all been the generation, at least, you know, us mid to late millennials, of like the late night gaming, like on a Game Boy Color, playing our favorite game, and that sense of like completeness of playing your favorite game on a little handheld console is kind of translated to the Switch. Maybe that's a Nintendo thing. Maybe that's just like the feeling of playing a game on your favorite console.
Yeah.
But
well, because like, so when you started in the early days of gaming, and I mean, of course, it doesn't matter how far back you go, there's always times before, but there was a suspension of disbelief that came from playing a game that was a character made up of like 4 or 5 pixels. You know what I mean? Like, your imagination really took hold, and it did most of the work.
Right.
And as graphics improved and got better and better, and physics simulation and all of this stuff started getting better and better and better, and we reaped the benefits of that as consumers and players, because just the incredible shit that we were seeing and the incredible stuff that the technology was capable of was awesome. But we forget that even playing on a Nintendo, and as shitty as the graphics were then, you could go to a Game Boy, and that was the difference of like rubbing sticks together to make a fire, and then like all you literally have is putting your hands between your thighs. Like there's nothing there. Like the Game Boy, that's kind of a weird like comparison, but like
no, I get what you're saying.
The Game Boy was just bare bones, and I mean not even like the Game Boy Color, like the original Game Boy. So like you could go from playing a Nintendo to playing the Game Boy, and there was just this thing of like you just appreciated the fact that you had this game that you could just walk around with and play, and that was so fucking cool. You know what I mean?
It was amazing in its simplicity, and it was amazing in the fact that it just existed in the first place.
And the handheld market is still going strong. Obviously, look at mobile games, look at all this stuff. And even nowadays...
If I hear one more thing about Clash of Clans, though, I'm going to strangle the next person I see.
But, like, what I was getting at was, as things were progressing, the gap between what console and PC, that experience, and the handheld experience was starting to widen, because what was possible on handheld, I would say it wasn't truly progressing as quickly. It's still fairly impressive what you see, but as things are becoming so hyper focused on graphics, the glaring issues between what is capable at peak performance and what is capable on handheld is much greater, much more obvious, and in a lot of cases these days, it's much less acceptable. You know what I mean? And so you're getting this separation where you have people who just purely play on handheld and they love it and it's great, and then you have people who are like console and PC. I mean, hell, even between console and PC, there's that whole, purity elitist war of my thing is better than your thing. My point is, good.
Yeah, like the elitism, like gatekeeping is always bad.
Yeah.
That's all I was going to say.
My point is, the Switch literally marries those two in perfect unison.
Yes, exactly. I think that's why the Switch is very like underappreciated.
See, and that's the thing. That's why I started it by saying that, because it's really not. The sales for the Switch are so impressive when you realize that the Switch came out did it come out before the PlayStation 4? Great. Now I got to fact check myself on this. I'm not having anyone fucking calling me out for being... I've watched
You're wrong. You're wrong. You didn't get the dates right. I don't know. I don't know when it came out.
I'm looking it up.
It came out after the PS4.
Did it?
I don't care for being wrong.
At PS4.
Like anything I say comes with the disclaimer of this is my opinion and or I'm an idiot.
Oh, yeah. I almost looked like an absolute idiot. What was I thinking?
What? Did it actually come out after or before?
They came out 5 years apart. 4 years apart.
That's amazing.
But still, the Switch is now, what is that, 4 years old? Yeah. The Switch is now, well, in 2 days, or in 1 day, it'll be, at the time of recording this, it'll be exactly 4 years old.
Yeah. Okay. It's cool. So
actually, my whole point has just disintegrated.
It's okay.
My whole point is just disintegrated. Yeah. Anyway, it's impressive, and it doesn't seem like it's going to die anytime soon. Even though people are talking about the Switch 2, they're talking about a Switch Pro. Honestly, regardless,
not necessary.
Yeah, people are still going to be happy with their Switch for a while to come. Still,
God, you're still happy with like your Nintendo 64. There's a flavor. There's a flavor, and that's an entirely different topic for an entirely different podcast, I think.
Yeah.
The point is like technology advancing and being able to give us things that we, sometimes take for granted or really don't acknowledge. And something that we were just talking about before the podcast, and this doesn't have to be a long topic, but technology becoming rather frightening, and technology being used for artistic creations, be that for good or bad. And I'm sure this is already a much talked about, much popular topic, considering one of the biggest YouTubers in the world has talked about it. We were literally on this website called Art Breeder before we got on this podcast.
Have you been watching a lot of Markiplier recently?
No, it was literally something that popped into my head that I was meaning to tell you about. And the fact that Markiplier was already in my head in this podcast is entirely coincidence.
Oh, okay.
But no, Art Breeder is a terrifying thing because it basically takes two photos that have been uploaded and uses them as parents, so to speak, for this AI to generate.
Well, multiples, not just two.
Yeah, multiple pictures. It generates different images based on these parameters that you can edit. And you were playing with it more than I have seen played with it. Like, what is your take on it? Like, what could you use it for, honestly?
Dude, it is so beyond my comprehension right now. You have these different parameters that I'm guessing are set up.
I think they're supposed to be vague on purpose, though.
Like, well, yeah, but they seem so specific too. But they're different parameters. Like you had like smile, open mouth, blonde hair, brown hair, and then like different colors. A couple of them were literally just letters, and there were these sliders that you would move back and forth. And basically, whenever you're moving the sliders, it's using more or less of one of the parent images while it's combining it. And a lot of times when you're doing that, depending on how much you move one over, you have like the image that is being shown has a dominant and a recessive aspect to it. So let's say one of your pictures is a perfect, like, straightforward profile, and then the other picture is of a completely different subject at a different angle. And the way it would work is the dominant picture is basically the bone structure, and the recessive picture is like details, like color, or like sometimes the eyes of like the child image would be slightly altered in terms of shape or color, but the dominant bone structure of that picture is the like the original that's kind of being painted over. And so when you're moving these sliders, sometimes it's very slight, and sometimes it literally changes the picture that's being shown, and then that picture is being altered because it's more dominant than the other parent images. And you can mess with these sliders to the point that you get the most abstract blob of colors that in no way resembles anything.
Yeah.
And you can create some eldritch horror type things.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was saying, is like technology can be amazing like the Switch, or technology can be incredibly terrifying like an Art Breeder.
Dude, deepfakes. This is a topic. It's a big topic. It's a heated discussion for a lot of people. It is.
I'm sure we'll get into that on a different podcast too, is like the big political shenanigans and deepfakes. But
it's scary, dude.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, that and
like
the porn. Like, it's amazing.
Like, it's like, dude, have you ever wanted to see like Emma Stone getting just absolutely railed by Thanos?
That, real quick, I want to touch on that. That's what I want to end this podcast with. The moral dilemma of being able to create a one-to-one representation of an individual just getting absolutely railed. Is that an affront to their personal, like, privacy? Because it's technically not their body.
No, see, that's what I'm saying, is like, where does it draw their line? Because if they're like a famous person and their face is basically in the what's the word I'm looking for? Like if their face is in the public domain, so to speak, like you can go to Google Images and find their face, basically.
I mean,
you don't have to go deep diving and hacking to find their face.
Yeah.
I say, like, if it's not their body and it's not them and it's such a weird gray area, but in my mind, no, because it's not them in any form.
Yeah.
Literally the only thing is their face.
Yeah. Well, here's something else too. I think it was Beyond Two Souls, that game, there's a nude scene with oh my god.
Was it the main character?
What's her name? The actress? Ellen Page?
Yeah, Ellen Page.
Yeah. So they basically captured her body, but it wasn't meant to be shown in game, right? So it is Emma Page.
Emma Stone.
Ellen Page.
Ellen Page. Emma Stone.
Is that her name?
Yeah, Ellen Page is her name.
Yeah. While I'm talking, I'm gonna. Yeah. Juno. Anyway, so that was her body, and it wasn't meant to be shown on camera. It just showed like legs and specific angles. Well, you could just hack the game and move the camera around. And that pissed her off. Like, she got upset.
And that's the problem, because it is her body at that point.
Yeah. And I can't remember if there was issues where, like, they weren't supposed to, like, fully render it because it wasn't supposed to be shown, or I can't remember what the stipulations were there. But, like, so you take deepfakes. You take that model and you run it through, like, the crazy photorealistic shit that people are able to do with that stuff these days. You add
deepfakes in a nutshell is you take one set of video and you let the computer learn about that video, and then you take another set of video that's the person you want to put,
or pictures or images
or you get something that you want the computer to learn to put on the original, and you let it learn that. And then once it's got those two learned, then you can tell the computer to put those together. And it runs iterations and iterations and iterations until it gets better and better and better and better at it. And the more you run it, the better it gets.
Yeah.
And the more detailed information you can put in on person A and person B, the better. Corridor Digital did a good thing where they recreated the scene from The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
spoilers.
Spoilers.
Where they recreated a scene from The Mandalorian using a deepfake. And technology nowadays for that is crazy. But
it's
what you're saying is taking her body
from that game,
which is her body. They scanned her body, her face, that is her likeness, and transforming that into a scene with a porn actress. Does that mean you're going against Ellen Page's consent?
I mean,
Emma, whatever.
Yeah, Ellen Page. That particular thing, it does start crossing the line. But it's just, that was just talking about the thought of what's possible. But
but doing that is insane.
Yeah, but like taking Scarlett Johansson's face and perfectly recreating it on another, because that's the thing, it's a pre-existing video.
Right.
And then it's been transformed so that it looks like Scarlett Johansson. But it is
a completely separate person's body.
It's terribly realistic. It's terribly realistic. And it's the thing there is that morally wrong? Is it bad?
See, that's the thing. Because, it's not like she has her face trademarked to the point of where you can't use it. If it was that way, you couldn't upload any interviews or anything on YouTube or anything like
legality.
that.
That's legality.
That's what I'm saying. Is like you can't do that anyway. But is it morally wrong? I don't know. That's the weird part. Personally, if someone, you know, had a weird fetish for some southern trans girl with crooked teeth and put my face on some porn star's body, you know, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, throw a fit about it simply because I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't shoot that scene. That's not my body.
Exactly.
That's not anything.
Yeah, it's not your actions.
But at the same time, it is their face. They do, I guess they do have to have some kind of opinion on it. But at the end of the day, I don't see a problem with it. It's because it's not their body. They didn't film that scene. They didn't do any of that stuff. You literally just put a copy of their face on somebody else's body in some different scene.
Yeah.
You wouldn't download a car. You wouldn't download a Scarlett Johansson.
Dude, I can't believe you said that. That's literally my background right now, is that you wouldn't download a bear.
I mean, if you could deepfake a bear and fuck it, would you? It's the same thing. It's like, can the bear consent? Well, I don't know. The bear didn't have sex. Scarlett Johansson didn't have sex, you know?
Yeah.
And I fear that's going to be like a controlled thing that doesn't need to be controlled.
Well, I mean, and we don't even need to get into the topic of thought crimes. That's what that pertains to.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what that goes into, is like, is thinking about this person bad? Well, it depends on who's in office. You know, it's one of those things of like, there's always going to be people out there that will call you a monster and trying to make thought crimes a thing. But at the end of the day, you know, ultimately, it comes back to what we've said before. If it's not hurting anybody, you know, nobody's going to sit there and look at, you know, this pornography of Scarlett Johansson getting railed by somebody. And this chick has so many tattoos and stuff like that. Like, nobody's going to look at that thing, or, you know, the way her body's shaped, or, you know, the exact color of her skin, and be like, oh, that's definitely her.
You know, yeah.
At the end of the day, you're going to be able to prove this isn't her.
You know what's weird? And because, you know, there's things that cross that line and just go all the way into like pants on head, batshit crazy. And,
yeah.
And there's that whole thing, but kind of getting into the realm of like uncanny valley, but with just creepy, weird. That's definitely not okay. Weird shit to do.
Yeah.
Have you ever run into those videos it's on any porn site you go to, where it's just an image of this? Normally it's an actress, like a famous woman or something,
some famous Hollywood actress,
and it's either a printed out picture or it's an image on a phone, and the dude just spanks, like literally the whole video is dude just spanks it and goes all over the image, just blows all over the image of that person's face.
I remember seeing, like, I'm not going to say the name of the website, but we both know what website I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where the whole thread was like, people doing that was like celebrities and like people at their school, and like random pictures of attractive women and things like that. And it really is like, it's like Walmart brand deepfake.
but
the deepfake is your imagination.
Deep fried, more like. But like, one of the weirdest ones was, it was titled like "My Daily Tribute to So and So."
Yeah.
And they would literally they'd churn the butter, get the picture ready, film themselves blowing on it, and upload it.
See, that's one of those things of like, that crosses the line into, oh, haha, you know, you're jerking it to an attractive person too. Now you have an obsession. Perhaps you should talk to a therapist.
Yeah, that's like that's like, you know, I skinned them and put it up in my shrine, you know, so that I could put it over my Scarlett Johansson body pillow. The only reason I keep bringing her up is, sadly, she is the subject of a lot of these. Which
I wasn't gonna say it, but there's a lot of her out there that I'm sure she feels some way about.
Dude, carrying that weight around daily it's not an easy feat.
No, see, there's also the thing about kind of tying into like the whole thought crime thing is like it stops being a thought crime issue when like someone like her, where the market is just flooded with her.
It becomes a public safety issue.
It becomes a problem because then you're wanting to look up a fact about, you know, a movie she's been in, you know, some totally innocuous thing. And even with some of the best content filters on, you know, your 10-year-old is going to go look up, you know, oh, cool, Black Widow. I want to, you know, see some, you know, scenes on, you know, Disney's YouTube channel of, you know, Black Widow fighting Ultron or something like that, right?
Yeah. Well,
even with the best content filter in the world, having the market flooded with that kind of content so much, you know, there's bound to be some child seeing something that doesn't need to be seen. So there really has to be a point touched of telling your kid, you know, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but this is something you shouldn't look at.
Yeah.
And this is something that isn't real.
I'm just imagining. Hey, you remember that scene in that movie where Scarlett Johansson kind of lands in the splits? Yeah, but I can't remember the name. I'll look it up. It's just a really cool image. I'm gonna search it up. Scarlett Johansson legs spread. Oh, sweet Jesus!
See, I mean, that's kind of the point. It's like, before like deepfakes and things like that, like you would have to have an unsecured connection to run into something like that. Nowadays, God help you if you search something like that, because all you'll get is porn.
Oh, it's a wonderful, scary world we live in.